Welcome to Kettlebell Corner, where strength meets theory, where we join you for a deeper dive into all things kettlebell. I'm Jeremiah Waylon, and that's Roger Parks. Let's get into it. Today, what are we talking about? Squatting with our spines? Don't we always squat with our spines?
Yep. Well,
unless you're a spineless, lily-livered jerkhole.
Yes, you do need to use your spine. What we're talking about specifically is using your spine to move the belt as the engine of the lift, as opposed to a link between the feet that push the floor and the belt that you're trying to move. So it's yes, you need to use it. How much are you using it? Are you using it instead of your legs? And unfortunately, many people do.
Well, in that case, then where does this idea even come from? I mean,
this is something I noticed after coaching for a long time. I remember, hearing this repeatedly and just completely dismissing, this idea of feeling squats with your back. Like, oh, where do you feel this? You feel this in your legs? No, I don't feel my legs at all. Now, I didn't pick up on it in situations where people would feel their legs, but they would also feel their back, because we're taught, at least I was taught, really early on, that any back problem is a weak core. Everything's a weak core. Whatever's wrong with you, it's a weak core.
The world is a weak core.
So I didn't put two and two together, but what I found really curious was when I started especially working with older clients, that they would feel all back and no legs. Like, I don't feel my legs at all. And they're going through rep after rep after rep. They're not feeling their legs. Okay, that's weird. So eventually, rather than me just assuming that they've got a weak core, I started digging into it and thinking, okay, well, and kettlebells helped quite a bit, but this idea of what's actually moving this thing, what's actually moving the belt, because, movement is not one of these things where your body says, okay, I'm going to squat. I'm going to use my quadriceps and my hamstrings and my glutes, and I'm going to do that. Like, it doesn't work that way.
You don't break it down like that every movement.
No, we would literally die. We would go through calories at such a rate that we would be extinct as a species. So, learning a little bit about neuroscience helped too. So, we have these patterns. We have these go-to patterns that we use, and the body and the brain are going to just get the job done. They're not going to think about efficiency, and they're not going to think, oh, how do I train the best? It's like lift thing. That's kind of the shorthand that the body, the lift brain uses.
So bald man stops yelling at me.
Yeah, basically. So I started noticing, well, wait a second, if there's this idea of, if we can move or compensate, right? If we can use all these other things, then what are these other things that we could be using? And then I started looking at, just the basic idea of where things attach, right? So, let's look at the pelvis. The pelvis is an important spot for all movement, really, but especially for squatting. Bone. What was that?
It's connected to the knee bone.
It's definitely connected to the knee bone.
The knee bone's connected to the thigh bone.
So if we look at the pelvis, let's say you're looking at someone from the back, especially let's say we're looking at the glutes, right? You have kind of like halfway down your butt, okay? You have some stuff that's attached to the bottom and goes down toward your feet, right? That links into the hamstrings, calves, all that stuff. But you also have, when you look at the muscles toward the top of the butt, they go into the thoracolumbar fascia. They go into this big sheet of thick, soft tissue that eventually goes up into your lat muscles, your erectors. There are all these big attachments. So if you use your back, because it is attached there, to extend or to arch backwards, you're going to partially push your hips forward. And that was kind of the big, the big thought. Like, oh, wait a second, people are probably doing this. They're not just driving their feet down, which is what we actually want them to do, but they're pushing the hips forward by arching the back, or they don't have any access to their pelvis in any other way because they're always arched back. They just live in this state where they don't really have the leverage to move something.
Got it. So if they're doing that, why the hell are they doing that? Is it how we're supposed to move, or this is just compensation?
I guess for starters, I don't like this idea how we're supposed to move. When people say we weren't designed that way, like, were you there? I wasn't there. I wasn't consulted.
I'm never consulted.
So are we supposed to move this way? What I will say is if I'm making a decision on moving through the thick, heavy bones of the pelvis and the femurs and those big muscles, as opposed to using a spine that has smaller bones, that obviously is not one solid structure, but has multiple vertebrae with lots of facets, the incredible ability to move and maneuver and bend in all these different ways, I would be more likely to think that we're better disposed to use the muscles of the lower body and have the spine kind of on top, manipulating our arms and our head and exploring the world and leaving the heavy lifting to the lower body. So I would say that, although I don't like the term, hey, we were designed that way, we may have been. And I think that we evolved the way we did for a particular reason. So are we supposed to move that way? I think we're supposed to use our legs to squat to a degree. That doesn't mean we don't use our spines, but yeah, we're supposed to do that. I think that this pattern comes about for a few reasons in movement. One, I think that movement's objective. Okay. Yeah. It's objective driven. So we don't think in terms of squats, muscles. We think in terms of lift this thing, lift that thing. Right.
Yeah. So, for huge booties. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's not I don't think that's the way the brain works. So let's say we're doing a goblet squat and we've got a kettlebell in our hands. We're thinking about the kettlebell in our hands, right? So we're immediately getting feedback from our fingertips. It's going up through our arms, our shoulders, into our necks potentially, especially if we're not good at this stuff.
Yeah, or if you have a weak core.
Yeah, definitely if you have a weak core. So the brain is really aware of the hands, and I think we become primed to lift this kettlebell rather than attach the kettlebell to the body and then move the legs. And part of it, I think, is coaching.
Yeah.
Like the language. Hey, lift the bell. We're obsessed about the weight. How much does that weigh?
Yeah.
So now we get into the mass of the bell. So I think part of it is coaching. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think another part of it is just losing contact with those muscles. You sit too much. Your brain doesn't need to remember how to use these things if you're not using these things. It would rather use its resources for other things like your job, remembering your fantasy football picks.
I got number one.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Yeah, you'll hear all about it in a few months.
Oh, that's really, it's important to me.
Great.
But we remember and we maintain the things that we do and that we use. So I think that's another thing for certain is we lose the ability to connect with these things.
Right.
So I think over time that kind of stacks up, and we just don't understand what it is we're trying to do, nor how we're trying to do it, or how to do it rather.
Yeah. And that being said, so we know we're squatting with our spines and we need to be using our legs, like you said, and not having to literally kill ourselves trying to think about every muscle. How do we know that we're even squatting with our spines in the first place? How can we identify that this is happening besides I feel it in my back?
Well, that's a big one, and that's an important one.
That's the obvious one. So if you're watching this or listening to it, it's because you feel it in your back.
Sure. One of the things that I use in my coaching, and I try to just stick with basic principles and think really, really simply. A lot of the time, people will tell me like, "Oh, why do you make things so complicated?" Like, I make things complicated so you can have a simple understanding of it and then bring these simple concepts into coaching. Because like you could attest when we're coaching people together, I don't usually have a long drawn out explanation. I look at someone and I say, usually with some expletives that so-and-so's doing this and that's kind of it. And then I walk away. So
and you walk away to a theme song.
So the thing that I look at is what's moving first. When you have a sequence of movement, okay, or a movement pattern like a squat, I want to look at what's moving first, because that's going to be a big clue. So what's moving first often in this pattern is you'll see the head lift and you'll see the back arch. You'll see a noticeable jump or a twitch of all these muscles before anything in the lower body starts happening. Right? So what's moving first is big. And if I see the chin lifting, if I see the chest jutting forward, and I see the spine going forward, or arching back rather, which will push the pelvis forward, that's a big clue. The second that I'll look for is, if I don't see the first, is everything finishing at the same time? Often what I'll see is someone's head's just kind of hanging out, and 6 minutes later their hips arrive into the full standing position. It's like, okay, Finally. This is an issue. So you can see this pattern. It's like you see this kind of scoop under at the very, very last moment. So their squat is basically done, and then they have this scoop under, and it's usually accompanied by some really awkward butt squeeze.
Yeah, not the good kind.
No, it's not hot. The third thing that I'll look for is motion of the bell without motion of the lower body. And, this applies to deadlifts. Windmills is a really common thing where you'll see, when someone's trying to do a windmill, you will see the bell moving, right? But the hips aren't moving back anymore. So with squatting, if the bell is still dropping or if the bell is rising, but the lower body is not moving, then you have to have motion to the spine. You can you can curl it or something like that, of course. But if it's changing levels in a way that seems to be compatible with squat, but it's not in fact, the lower body is not in fact moving, then you're looking at this pattern, this squatting with your spine pattern. And this applies on the way up as well as the way down. Sometimes you need to use your spine to make up for poor hip flexion, as well as actually pushing force into the ground.
All right. Well, I think it's pretty easy to find out if you're doing that. Just take a video of yourself, and I won't even say film, because I know how that gets your goat. But let's
you say tape. You say tape.
Yeah.
Tape it. Tape. No one tapes anything anymore. You're old.
I'm getting there. Let's help some people out with this then. If this is something you do, let's cover, of course, a little bit of the basics of the physics behind this, and then we'll give them some drills that they can work on themselves that hopefully will take them out of moving with the spine first, or in general, not being a bad squatter or whatever other lift.
So two really basic physics concepts. I'm going to start with the more complicated one, and then I'll get the one that's even simpler. But this idea of using your spine as a lever to push your pelvis forward. So whenever we're looking at exercise, especially a grind, but whenever we're looking at any exercise, we can use what's called the line of gravity. And gravity always moves vertically. Okay. Yes. So that line is going to move straight down through your center of mass. Now the center of mass will be combined. So it's you and a kettlebell, right? Yeah. So where the line of gravity hits that center of mass is a really important point. And if you look at getting something behind that line of gravity, okay? So like, let's say you lift your head. When you lift your chin, you're lifting your chin, but you're also moving your head back, right? So if you have a line that's moving right down, imagine this line moving straight down through somewhere around your pelvis when you're standing up, right? Yeah. If you lift your head is moving behind that line, okay?
It's true.
At a certain point, when you have too much of that mass moving behind that line, something needs to move forward in order to balance you. It's kind of like a seesaw. So something moves behind you, something has to move in front of you, okay?
Otherwise you'll fall over.
Or you will fall over. So you can feel this either in sitting or standing. If you lift your chin up and then stick your chest out, you'll notice that your back starts to arch, okay? And if your back starts to arch, you should feel the pelvis rolling forward.
I do.
Okay.
You're sidekick or psycho.
So when the pelvis goes forward, especially when let's say you're in that starting position, let's say you've gotten to the bottom of the squat and you're ready to stand back up. If you tip your chin up and move the head back and you jet your chest forward and you arch your back, you're levering your hips forward. So you're taking away some of the mass from the stack that you need to lift because you're pulling it behind you, and you're using that balance to move things forward rather than just pushing through your feet. So if you don't have great use of the glutes, this is going to be a really easy strategy for you. So you want to, look at the spine and not let the spine arch back, okay? Because that's one of the things that's causing that spine to lever back to push the hips forward. The second thing we need to understand is just the basic people talk about, Newton's laws of motion and the equal and opposite. We're using contact force to move this kettlebell in this situation, and the contact is going to be applied between the feet and the ground. So rather than thinking about lifting the bell, we want to think about pushing the ground away. Okay. Or even simpler, just think about standing up, because thinking about standing up puts the focus on your body. It doesn't put the focus on the kettlebell. So we're not immediately getting into our brains and getting into our hands and thinking, oh, me lift this thing, right? Because then you're going to start jerking with your arms and So those are the two basic things that we want to know about the physics of this thing. So for starters, I like to go simple at first. So I might just put my hand on someone's upper back. I'll have them get down into the bottom, I'll have them sit on a high box, or I'll put my hand in between the shoulder blades. Oh, well, first I'll have them do it to me, and I'll show them the right way and the wrong way. So I would say at least 80% can feel the difference.
Yeah. Get yours first. Yeah.
What was that?
Get it done on you first. I like that.
Yeah. When you need to sign documents and stuff like that.
And no video.
Get consent. But so this clears it up for most of the people. And then I'll just say, hey, go do your thing. Okay. Let's say that doesn't work. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use the reflexes of the eyes. So flexion, the body folding forward, happens when you look down. Extension, the body arching back or standing up straight, is going to happen when you look up. Okay. So if what we really have is essentially an extension problem, people are using spinal extension to move rather than hip extension, right? Okay. If we're getting that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cue looking down while people squat. Sometimes that helps. Okay. In a more extreme version, I got this idea from Zach Couples, who I think got it from Bill Hartman. But the idea is I'm going to take, I'm going to take the head, and I'm going to look down, and I'm going to let the spine just completely collapse like a rag doll. Okay. Taking all the tension out of the upper body, and I'm going to make my legs feel super heavy. So what I'm going to do is not lock, but relax and have the spine stay in flexion. And when it's in flexion, you can't extend it. And if you do try to extend it, you usually notice the difference. You're like, oh, wait, I feel it starting to work.
Yeah, because you're drastically going in one direction. So if you try to do, it's just such a big move that you're going to know you're doing.
Yeah. And we often detect differences. We don't necessarily say, we can tell all of the listeners about arguments that we've had over whether we're using our spines or not. And sometimes you see it in me, sometimes I see it in you, and we don't know it. We don't feel it. But then we go back to the video. It's like, son of a bitch. So
busted.
You can't always notice it, but when you do notice, when you put your spine into this extreme flexion and you're completely relaxed, you notice the difference of, one, my muscles are no longer relaxed, and two, I'm not moving forward. Now I'm moving backward. So you can do this with a single leg, or you can do this, in a squat stance. But for people who really need to feel it, I tend to bring them into, I wouldn't even call it a split squat, because it's kind of a complicated move, but it's almost like a kickstand where I have them emphasize 1 foot forward. And then usually they feel, I talk about just, think about the force, think about the foot pushing into the ground, and feel that force start to move up from the foot, up through the knee, up through the hip. And then they start to feel that. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
and you're not even standing all the way up in this, right? That's at least when I've tried it. It's just getting a feel for what's happening to you.
Correct. There are different drills that are really designed to help you find things, and then there are drills to help you reinforce things. And obviously we don't want all of our squats, whether this is good, bad, or indifferent. I don't want to weigh on this, but we're not teaching people to squat with their spines rounded forward only. What we're doing is we're trying to get the neurological drive into the legs so they know how to use them. So usually after I do those things, I've never had anyone not get it from that. Okay. So now once they understand how to use their legs, they understand, okay, this is the task at hand. I just reinforce with some simple isometrics. So I have someone get down into a squat, assuming they can move through the hips and the knees. There are other drills we can do for that if if they can't do that. But we clean that up if we need to. But they're comfortably in the bottom of the squat, and then I just have them hold that position. And I tell them, I remember you're standing up, and that standing up, that contact starts from the floor. And I want you to really think about pushing. I want you to feel the legs, and I want you to imagine that you're trying to stand up and something really, really heavy is not letting you. Don't stand up, but I want you to put all of your focus into your legs as though you're trying to stand up and you're not able to. And that usually gets, rather than just kind of hanging out there passive against gravity, you'll get some training, but purposefully pushing the legs into the floor, but not being able to stand up. That usually drives the point home a lot more. And then it's just a simple matter of do this, then do that.
Yeah.
Okay?
So then do the exercise, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we've found the thing, right? We now know what the fault is, so you can identify it and you can see it if you're a student and you're working with video. So you can identify it. Now you can feel it happening. Now we know the right thing to do. Now we're reinforcing the right thing to do statically, and now we're going to take that into movement. So I might pair a simple superset of let's do an isometric and let's do 3 squats, 5 squats, nothing heavy and nothing exhausting, because we need to pair the stimulus, and you need to be really, learning needs to happen when you're fresh.
Yeah. Otherwise you're going to just compensate again. And that's what you're trying not to do.
Probably. And that's interesting that you bring that up, because what usually happens is people will say, I feel myself trying to do it again. Once they get tired, they go back to that default pattern because their brain knows like, oh, I'm having a hard time with this, but I know I can make it happen this way. So that's just your brain and your body working the way it's supposed to. So you just need to be good as either a coach or a practitioner and say, okay, I'm not going to do these reps. I'm not going to push this load. Let me just relax. Let me shake it off and go back and do it the right way. So I'm sending consistent signals.
Yeah. Send the right message consistently so that you can stop doing that spiny bull crap that we were talking about 20 minutes ago, right?
Yes, the spiny bull crap.
Yeah, the spiny bull crap. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much it. If you can't squat by now, you're going to have to hire us. And you can do that anytime. You know how to find us. You can get us at theironrevival.com, and you can download the Bells app on the Apple App Store. Roger, you got anything else for them?
Lots, but nothing on this topic right now.
All right. Squat it off. Stay strong, everybody.
What does that even mean?
Means nothing.